What I've discovered working with the communities and people within the communities, you find people almost compulsive in their sort of desire to know more. There's a sort of level at which people get hooked and they need to find out more. So you get, generally speaking, a small core group of people who have an absolute passion for finding out. And then you involve more people, so it snowballs. And that's kind of how it works.
And they can start in a very small way, researching a name, someone linked to the archive, and from that moment on, they can, with the support of us in the museum and the university as well, we can help them sort of progress onto more bigger projects.
But the amount of detail what the museum hold is quite tremendous, actually, and the welcome of people to try to help you as much as they can, especially the museum staff. They've been first class.
There's lots of books that have been written. I've got 2 or 3 of them written about the Portsmouth area.
When you're doing research, you've got to start off, and basically it's a methodical thing that you must do. You start with the name, you then put the name into the computer, into a search engine or whatever one you're looking for, and to see what it brings back.
Start with what information you have, or what interests you, and then pull at that thread really, and see where it goes. It can often be amazing how much you can find.
We've got 2 war memorial plaques, one of which was for the First World War, the other one was the Second World War, with lots of names on it. It actually needed repairing, so I've got somebody to repair it. And I wanted to know more about the people who were on that list. And I started with going to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and I used all sorts of resources to try and find out more about these people.
You can actually order up the war records and you can see exactly what the soldiers did, during World War One.
And if you actually will go on the 1911 census, you can actually find out what the family were doing, which will give you another idea.
There's a lot on the web. More and more the National Archives website, sites like Find My Past and Ancestry are very good.
Some sites are free, the Commonwealth War Graves is, others are not. So there is a cost implication, and you've got to bear that in mind.
I use the internet mostly, although I did go into the library and look through the church magazines.
Well, what I did basically was went into the library, and they put me onto the Evening News, which is our local newspaper, and it's been printed now for 100 and odd years. So, and they've got all of those.
If you're researching and you hit a brick wall, there's always support. In the City Museum, there'd be helpers on hand if you come in and wanted to research something. They could also refer you to the library and local studies services. There's a great support network there.
It's not going to come into your lap. Don't think for that. You've got to go and find it. You've got to dig it out.
You may think it's a fairly straightforward task looking at Find My Past or census, and then you start to learn the sort of pitfalls. They're normal sort of pitfalls of transcribing things. But then sometimes the people who've actually been professionally transcribing don't necessarily transcribe in the right way.
Research also will lead you down blind alleys. You're trying to find out something and all of a sudden you find nothing. But that doesn't put you off. You then keep on. You try another avenue and you keep on going at it.
One of the major challenges is some of the names on the list weren't correct, in that they might have spelt their surname differently. They may have had a Christian name before the one that was on the war memorial, or they may not have used that first Christian name that's on the war memorial.
We wanted to do a narrow, focused view, but unfortunately it's just impossible to do that. You have to look at the wider picture in order to match up people and places.
You have to think, sort of all the tricks you can use to get around the weaknesses of some of the systems.
So I think it's knowing that you're dealing with material that is 100 years old and treating it in that way. And obviously you're looking at sort of bare records, and some of those records don't exist because of the Second World War. Some of them are called burnt records. So you're only getting glimpses of those stories.
Portsmouth is also a place where people have always come and gone, and so finding someone who was here or was here afterwards, quite where they came from, can be an issue.
It's surprising. You make a lot of effort at one time to do something, and you get stuck. But sometimes if you leave it, as you say, somebody will come up later and say, oh yeah, I know that chap.
I would recommend anyone do it. I think the mistake I probably made is I didn't get people involved early enough. It was kind of when it actually started to advance a bit more that I actually went to our senior team and said, I'm going to need some support with this, some assistance. I think perhaps I would have gone to them a bit sooner rather than trying to take a lot of it on myself, but I didn't know at that stage it was going to become this big.
I think they'll find it not only sort of interesting and fun to research, but something like the First World War is also incredibly moving to research as well, which we try to also capture in the exhibition.
Contact us in the first place, just have a conversation, no commitment. Come and have a cup of tea with us, we don't bite, and talk through what your interest is, and we'll see where we can go with that.
Well, they can contact the History Centre, is probably the best thing, on the second floor of the Central Library. Come in person or ring or send us an email.
If you get enjoyment from it, get into it.
We're looking for more community groups to work, so this is not an end. This could be a beginning for some community groups. We have materials now for you to pick up. You just need to ask, and we're very keen to help you find out more about your local area. There's a lot more to learn.